So there's a global pandemic. A virus is sweeping across our world still, and society has changed. Why is this happening? Is somebody going to do something about this? Now that you can get a free donut, do you wish that it was a gym membership instead? If you haven't considered these questions yet, you will. And we will be here with you, your personal guides on this journey, this descent into madness. Thank you for joining us on Staring at Goats.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. It is GOAT time. We are the show that tells you all about our quarantine, your quarantine, and all the quarantines in between. Hope you drank your quarantine. I'm your host,
Ovaltine or quarantine?
Your quarantine. I'm your host, Steven, joined as always by other host, one Jacob.
What's up?
And he, Travis. So
Hello.
glad to have the many good friends here amongst the chat room to join us with commentary and thoughts as we venture down this painful long road that we had all bet would be over. I think we're at the 52 or last week the year we've been doing this 1 year officially, or are we close?
No. So if you look at the dates and the calendars, we're at 1 year, 3 weeks. And last week was episode 50. And today we are on episode 51. And next week we'll be in the 52nd episode, the true 1 year worth of episodes.
The true 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
But it's technically been 1 year and 3 weeks since we missed a few weeks.
Yeah, okay. So either way, it's been long enough.
Yes,
I think is where we're at and where we continue to be. But the news keeps rolling in. The evidence to back vaccines keep rolling in. The numbers spiking and the peaks and valleys, it all still matters. And because of that, Staring at Goats is going to continue staring at goats until the end of this thing, which I hope is fast approaching. But to start with, let's talk about how each other are doing. Jacob, let's start with you this week. Let's start with you. I like what you put in the notes. I have no idea what it means. I want to know. I can't wait anymore.
What I put in the notes was don't adapt, change, period. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks is about the way we do business and the way we work. That's changing. That's completely changing. And it's not like new technology has come on board slowly and we've had companies start to integrate that into work streams, and we've started to slowly change the way we do business and adapt those technologies into the way we did business. It's boom, one day you got to do business a completely different way. And a year ago we hit this, and now that we're a year in, we are still in that don't adapt, change model. And yeah, I know companies are going to this hybrid model where they're trying to get workers back in the office and blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is that the writing's on the wall. We have changed the way we do business. We are not going to go back to the old way of doing business. Some things may resemble what we used to do, but some things are not going to resemble what we used to do. And companies, and my company is not excluded from this, but companies are making announcements about permanent changes, things like travel. They're saying, what do we need to travel for? We've made it the last year without traveling, so why should we have to travel anymore? And so they're starting to say, is business travel a thing anymore? Because they're starting to try to justify why they shouldn't travel. They're looking for these hybrid models, like I just mentioned. Well, if people can work remotely, should we let them? Because guess what? We don't have to do rent space to them anymore or have space for them. So now all of a sudden, commercial properties are starting to show up on the market, right? I've noticed an alarming trend over the last probably 2 to 3 months. The number of retirements have gone through the roof, especially where I work. I bet we've had probably a dozen retirements. We're known for we're a company that when you get there, you kind of stay there, and to see people start retiring at this number, we might see 1 or 2 retirements every year, but to see 12 in the last 3 months, just from the beginning of this year, I'm like, what is going on here? 2 weeks ago, one of my favorite bosses, one I claim he's probably my mentor associated with my work. He retired and he's 58 years old. And I'm like, what are you doing?
That's
He was like,
early,
man,
yeah.
Jacob, yeah, he was like, I just don't want to work in this environment anymore. I don't like it. There's nothing about this that it makes me happy. He said, I don't enjoy going to work anymore because of the way we work now. It's awful. And so I started to probe that a little bit, and I started to realize these old school guys, they're not old guys. They're just they do business in a different way, are really struggling right now because they're used to the face-to-face meetings. They're looking at
Mhm.
people's eyes. They're reading people. They're trying to understand where people are coming from, and you just don't get that level of connectivity through this kind of a camera interaction. You just don't get it on the phone. It's just not there. They're used to going out to lunches, people taking them out to lunches and trying to sell them on the newest, latest, and greatest technology and say, here, buy my swears. I've got new things. And so that's how they learned about technologies and different things and where the market was going and et cetera. And all of that's gone because bottom line is you're not going to sit here on a phone call when you got 48 other things to do and you're just going to ignore it. Or best case scenario, you'll listen to them for 2 minutes and be like, nah, I'm not interested. Talk to you later. Bye. But before, everybody ate lunch, so it was a captive audience. So you went out to lunch, right? And
Mhm.
and it's gone. And I started thinking back to myself, and I used to go out to lunch with somebody probably once a week or once every 2 weeks, and learn about something new. And somebody's trying to sell me something, and they'd pay for my lunch, and I'd be happy because I got a free lunch. And every once in a while, I'd buy something from somebody, and but it was a way for me to stay relevant and stay active in my field, and it was a way for me to understand where things were progressing, and that's all gone. And I think some of these old school guys are starting to realize it's not coming back, or it's not in the near term future. um, and so I'm watching this, and it's kind of a I'm not sure we're prepared for what came, and I'm surely not thinking that we're ready for the changes that we're going to be making permanent.
Yeah.
And so that's what's kind of been on my mind lately. I've been inquiring within my group about how we want to change and how we want to work differently and blah, 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 blah. And some people are all for it, but then you've got some people that are like, screw this. This sucks. You need to be able to look people in the eye. You need to be work alongside of people shoulder to shoulder. You don't need to be interfacing through a webcam when you're doing the kind of business we're doing. That's just not right. And so I've been trying to feel out where people are at on that scale, and I'm curious to hear where you guys fall. I know, Steven, you're probably like, hell yeah, I don't have to go back in the office. Um, but yeah, I'm curious to where you guys fall on that scale.
Well, let's start with Travis because you have actually been your workplace completely dissolved their physical presence, right?
So yes, it's interesting because my company is spread all over hell anyway. We're based out of Austin, Texas, and we have offices there and in Vermont, and there's one in Florida, but we have a lot of remote people too. So I know there is a move to go back to the office for those people in Austin, in Vermont. There's especially the salespeople. But my end of it, the sport end, we're all spread out. I'm in Michigan. We got somebody in Wisconsin, Vermont, and then somebody's going to be out in Colorado soon on my particular team. So for me, I don't really it. The change for me was going to this work from home, and that's become permanent as soon as I change positions. Um, and I'm fine with that. There's Once this guy moves from here to Colorado, there will be 3 people in my company that live in my state. So there's really no point in having an office at all. So I'm fine with that, but I don't need to interact face to face with people. I'm not doing sales. I know that sales people, that's really what their bread and butter is. Because like you said, things like lunches or taking people out for golf or, doing a business trip and schmoozing a bit, and that helps the sale. And that's an old school mentality that I don't know how that's going to change, but I'm fine with it myself personally.
Yeah.
I like
I,
sitting at home with my dog.
I got that's a yeah, that's a good point. I got two little thoughts here. The first is there's a movie that came out probably 10 years ago now called Up in the Air. It's a Jason
Mm.
Reitman flick with George Clooney and Vera Farmiga and Anna Kendrick at the start of her career. And that entire premise to that movie is George Clooney's a man who spends all of his time traveling to fire people. He arrives at a location, he sits down with the person who's going to be let go, he tells them everything that's happening, he gives them their folders and whatever, and they are going to remove him from his position and replace him with video conferencing. Because the world has moved to a place where they can just simply video conference a person, fire them over the internet, and move on. And he's disgusted at the entire idea. And he's able in the movie to prove to them how jacked up it is by them attempting to fire someone while he's like at the place over this video thing, and how much poorly it goes because there's not a human that he can talk to, or that person can like emote with and connect with, because they're staring into a camera and these empty eyes of another human a million miles away, and how they freak out about it. And things like that, I think, is kind of, that's a really extreme example of the whole firing thing, but like a salesperson similar, that when we're doing this show or any Zoom call or any conference call, if I look at the camera, I'm not looking in your eyes. If you're looking in the camera, you're not looking in my eyes most of the time. We're always disconnected. And there is a very strong evolutionary mechanism that connects two people when they actually look at each other. And I think that's drastically absent from video conferencing. And now I understand completely why people who want that face-to-face and that connection feel like they can't work this way.
Yeah.
I work at a
Especially if
company
that's all they've known.
Yeah, it's all they've known, sure. I've worked at this company that I'm at now, who has had a complete remote if you want to policy for years, like since the inception, because they needed the smartest brains they could find, and they really didn't want to worry about moving those brains here. They just wanted those brains to be where they are and work real hard to produce cool stuff. We're unique in that we're an open source company, so all our stuff can be found for free. So we have to like entice smart people to build things that we want to sell. But like that model has always just kind of worked for us. That being said, I really miss going into the building. And I know you tease like, I'm probably never going to go back. But as my kid gets older and needs more time with me, as more stuff around the house gets kind of nuts, like I have really missed that time to drive to the building, the time to drive home from the building, the time
that's what I missed.
Yeah, that's one of the main things that I could use, is not that like as soon as I'm off work, I'm on dad duty like right out of the gate. There's no spin down, spin up time. It's just you're there. I need that. I think I've figured that out over the last couple months. But yeah, I miss seeing like C-Mitch, for example, sit next to him in a cube. We don't work on the same team anymore. I rarely talk to him because, like we've mentioned on the show before, all conversation is intentional. Everything that you do, everything that you want to talk to somebody about has to have a meeting and a time slot. It's not random. It's not an organic thing. Like I talked to Jesse about YouTube videos for 20 minutes today. And like that was the most off-kilter random conversation that I think I've had with somebody like over a meeting. It's like, oh, well, we got done talking about what we needed to early, so let's talk about normal stuff that humans talk about. And that it builds camaraderie and it builds relationships that work to make you have a good time at work.
And I think that's an important feature of it. It's an important aspect, because I will tell you, if you ask probably 9 out of 10 people at the location that I work at why they work there, it has nothing to do with the smartest minds and blah, 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 spread out all over the world and interconnected and blah, 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 blah. It has everything to do with, I like the people that I work around.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable here because
Yeah,
I enjoy being around these smart people and doing really fun things with smart people. Yeah, I can find a group of smart people anywhere, but I enjoy being in this building with good, smart people. And I think that's what some of these people that are retiring are missing. They're missing that opportunity to interact with really awesome folks. I mean, and the other thing is you talked about salespeople. I haven't bought something new in forever for the labs and for the building. And whenever I do buy it new, I don't even talk to a salesperson. I look up exactly what I want, and chances are it's going to be from the same company that I've purchased from before. It's nothing new. I'm not going out on a limb. I'm not trying to find the latest and greatest. I'm just trying to find something that suits my needs. And I'm thinking long term, it's actually going to hinder our progress because we miss these quantum leaps in technology that we're used to getting every once in a while. Just because a salesperson comes and says, "I got this really cool thing that can really help you out, and this is what it can do for you," and you're like, "Oh, hold on, wait, that could help." And now it no longer do I have those meetings, and I'm just stuck with the same companies that I've been working with because I don't have time to take a new phone call. There's not that lunch to go to anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I think there are a lot of things that this work from home is hindering, just for me personally where I work. But I'm interested to hear if somebody from in the audience listens to this and it either resonates or they basically say, Jacob, you're full of shit. I'd love to hear that too. So send me a note if it resonates, because I'd like to hear your opinions about it.
Yeah, staring at ghost podcast at gmail.com. Go ahead and
That's
throw
right.
it out there. Uh, yeah, yeah. The work from home is a different thing. When you were talking about the old guys who wanted to see people, I was imagining what it was probably like for the old guys who were used to drinking scotch at work, not being allowed to do that anymore. Probably were like, "F it, I'm not going back." This is like
Yeah,
this
I'm done with
the
this.
we can't drink scotch at work anymore kind
Well,
of thing.
and there definitely is something to be said for that. Like
Yeah,
we're creatures of habit in a lot of ways. So when you get into a routine, when something is normal, and then that's taken away, and you're not given the option
yeah,
of one or the other. It's just no, this is how it's going to be now. A lot of us bristle at that. That's just how it goes, and you either have to adapt and change with the times, or you get out.
yeah,
Um, there's a lot of
Well,
it.
and that was the reason why I brought this up originally, was adapter change, and I don't think it's a. I struggle with the word adapt because that implies that there's a certain level of adoption associated with the way um, the progress is made, and there was no adoption for this. It was instantaneous change. It was you do it this way because of this now, and it's going to be this way forever. And that's why I'm hesitant to use the word adapt, because yeah, we can adapt to this change, but there wasn't an adoption to this. It was just
Well, it was a
everybody had to
short.
go through this.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a short adoption period. It's like it would be a lot like you have lived for 35 years and suddenly you are diagnosed with diabetes and you can no longer have sugar,
Yeah,
right?
mm-hmm.
Or it will kill you. Like you there's a super short adoption phase there of
yeah,
like no, now.
Yeah,
And that's harder. That's a lot harder to do. It's still there, but it's just when you shorten that down, and again, you're not given that option.
yeah.
It's not a look, you should probably cut back on sugar so that you don't end up in the no fly zone, but uh or yeah, so that's the hardest part. The hardest part is not having the option. I was given an option to be able to work from home or go to a different company that had an office, and the option to work from home was better for me, so it was easier for me to adopt to. And that's the other thing you notice too with a lot of startup companies. There's a lot more, especially in software, it's more of the culture to have remote work, whereas sales has never had that as a culture. So now all these salespeople and everything that they have learned is getting thrown out the window, and they've got to change everything that they're doing,
Yeah.
and they have no time to change lanes. It's just now you got to do it right away. That's the hard part,
yeah.
And
definitely.
by the way, your diabetes analogy was fantastic. But here's my question, because that
Mm.
really was a great example. How many people actually change their diet?
I know one diabetic,
Well,
and that didn't happen.
Didn't even come close.
Not even remotely
I
attempted.
I know probably one that I can think of off the top of my head whose diet has changed. Um, but it obviously it's going to be person to person, but that's very similar to the person that works with you who the office culture changes and they retire.
Yeah,
It's that kind of an example, or it's that kind of a thing where
Yeah.
rather than change and adapt and try to work with it, it's easier to get out of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've done diabetes research for 15 years. I pretty much cut my teeth on diabetes research, both type 1 and type 2. And the number of people that actually adapted and changed their lifestyle, I could probably count on one hand. And there are the magical gems out there that do it. I mean, my father was one. He got diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and boom, immediately he changed his lifestyle and did it and was able to do it. So I feel like those kind of people that are headstrong enough to be able to make that happen will do it if they have the willpower to be able to do it. But if I would say that's rare. So I'm trying to take that analogy one step further and try to apply it even more to this. And I think the people that have been in this situation for 50 years or 30 years or 20 years, they're really going to have a tough time. And it's showing because we're seeing a lot of them retire.
Some
Yeah, I mean,
people
habits are hard to change.
some people are
They
better
just
cold
are.
turkey quitters than other people. Like
Mhm.
my dad did the same thing. He got even a hint of diabetes and he weighs less than I do now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's some people are just like, I mean, he still smokes all the time, dips and whatnot, but the sugar scared the crap out of him, so he got out of that. Like, I can only handle so many ailments, and, you know, so I don't like food enough.
I smoke all day and I drink my dinner.
Pretty much, yeah. He eats oatmeal in bed for dinner now. That's like he's made the change.
Oatmeal
But
and
the
Crown
thing is,
Royal.
yeah,
He'll,
yeah.
he'll live to 108. That's
Right.
what that's how it'll go.
It seems to be tracking well. Well, I'm glad we talked about that because that has certainly been a subject on everybody's mind. I think with this the new economy, like how much we now have a year of forced work from home that companies were afraid to try, and we have stats on that productivity and what that's done and how these last 4 quarters have gone in a company's fiscal year. So it'll be interesting to see like when everybody can go back, how many companies do change their model and who sticks around and enjoys it. To me, I'd prefer the option. If we do get to go back, I'll probably do a 3-2, 3 at work, 2 days at home. Try and split it like that.
Mhm.
I think that would be workable for me. I just have to get a car again because I sold my other one and we went down to one car. Oh darn! Got to go get that pickup truck I've always wanted.
Oh,
Shoot.
bummer.
See, you had it right there in your mind the whole time. You're like, I know I could play this just right. This pandemic that we've got,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and sell, go down to one car. Whenever we come back out of the pandemic, I'm gonna spin that bad boy back up and be like, hey, you wanna know what'd be good?
Give me a pickup
Truck.
truck. Yeah. D-Wayne needs a pickup truck. Tired of mooching off Tater all the time. Scheming Steven. That's me. Thank you, Oddly Normal One. You put that on my yearbook picture.
That's awesome.
So for me, the locked in issue has become significantly more pronounced. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just Easter candy or what, but I feel like I'm in the house with a caged animal all day, with my poor 6-year-old kid. Love him to the moon and back. He is not ADHD. We had him tested for that, but they were like, the hyperactivity is probably on the high side. I'm like, okay, so he can pay attention. He just doesn't want to sit still to do it. Understood. We got this. So like that's definitely becoming more evident. And Stephanie and I are waking up in the morning to just this. I'm flapping my hands wildly in as like a chitter chatter. He is after stuff the minute he wakes up. Like, can you do this for me? Can you print out a picture of Optimus Prime and laminate it so I can play with it? Oh, and when you do that, can you also do this? It's like insane. And to say no is just like, oh my gosh, please go away. I love you. That's been really like, so I've been on even more of a desperate hunt for like, hey, like, do your kids want to play? Like, hey, random person on the street, do you have children? Are they quarantined? It's becoming more evident that though he didn't make it to kindergarten this year, it would have been really good for him to have made it to some sort of organized structure and routine that would have suited him well. Because it's real tough around here right now, and we're both losing the ability to function as each passing day goes on.
Well, because I'm guessing things started off where it was Sam was at home with you.
Mm-hmm.
But now he has become Rorschach, and you're stuck in the prison with him.
Yes. Yes. That's 100% right. He was home. We had a lot of routine, and then he finally figured out, like, we're at home. Like, whatever, and then we determined we're going to put him in kindergarten again next year anyway, so we loosened up a little bit on our rigorous, like, we've got to get him educated for first grade struggle, because it became like we need to get him ready for stuff, but we can not kill ourselves to do it, which was also making, like, both of us insane, because getting him to sit down for us is different. Getting a kid to hey, Sam will listen to any other adult that is not us.
Oh, yeah.
Or Uncle Jacob or Aunt Ashley or May and Papa or Granny and Pop. So anyone that's not a relative, he's like, yes, I will pay attention to you. You're awesome. I will listen. I do not know who you are, other adult. But, like, with us, it's, anyway, it's parent stuff. It's parent stuff, and it's going to happen. But kindergarten will be here sometime in August, and we'll hopefully be going, and everything will be fine. You could say, send him somewhere else for 6 to 8 hours and be like, oh, okay, I can get myself straight. I can actually do laundry. We can get this done. But in other news, aside from that being a thing, it's becoming more clear, the more people I talk to, that the exercise that I did involving going to a rural area to get a vaccine has clearly exacerbated the problem of rural areas getting more vaccine than they need, and the continuous exodus of people from these large civil areas where there's actual civilization. The migration to rural places to get a vaccine continues. Yesterday, I saw a list for a place up near Wake Tech that had a list of 500 vaccines that were going to go to waste, and they could not find people to put them in because so many people had already gone somewhere else. You've also got a portion of the community that is not going to get vaccinated whatsoever because they're a bunch of dumb idiots. Yes, I said it. I'm sorry. You go get vaccinated. But and then you got the place in Dunn out in rural up but nowhere that's like, hey, we still have 5,000 vaccines. Any more of y'all want to come down here get one from anywhere, because we've got too many. But to me, like, where does the logistical failing come out in that? Like, whose issue was that? Was it done initially getting 5,000 vaccines for their area, and no one, like, misjudging the amount of vaccines they actually needed and then having to do something? Or was it like, did they not send enough to Wake County where we have this huge population center? Like, now we can't get appointments. Even if there are vaccines, it's really hard to find a place to get a shot. Somebody I know today was rejected getting their second shot because they had gone to the clinic in the rural area, even though they told the person they made the appointment with that it was their second shot. They were like, wait, you didn't get it here? F you. Go back to where you came from, and, like, get out of my house. And it's really confusing because they're like, I said I'm getting my second one. They said, great, come on down. But they weren't saying great because you went somewhere else. And the lady was like, oh, you people went somewhere else and now you want to come back here. He said she was a little rude. But I mean, where did we mess up? Where did the state or the federal government or whatever screw it up? Or did we do it? Did we do it by...
I think it was us. I mean, I bitched about this, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I said this is exactly what was going to happen, and I feel like I should do this number because I called it. This is exactly what we had predicted would happen happened. And for those that are just now listening, the thought here was, the Department of Health and Human Services here in North Carolina was in control of how they were going to send the vaccines to the different counties, and the way they allotted them was based on population to start with. And then they rewarded the counties that actually distributed all of their vaccines by giving them more vaccines because they needed to continue to roll it out as quickly as possible. So these outskirts, or these rural areas that are just on the outskirts of major metropolitan areas, were getting hit really hard. And so they were distributing their vaccines lickety split, and so they kept getting more and more and more because the state was like, oh, if you're going to distribute them, great, here's more. And they took them from areas that were not distributing nearly as well. They took them from places up in the mountains or down at the beach or in the middle of rural North Carolina that wasn't close to a metropolitan area, and they started pulling back on some of those. But the major metropolitan areas still kept kicking out as many vaccines as they could, but they were never getting any more because these surrounding areas were doing so well. And then once the surrounding areas stopped doing so well because people weren't willing to travel anymore, because guess what? The people that were all antsy for it and said, "Give me more, give me the vaccine, I need it," they're no longer needing it. They've got the vaccine. So where is that need coming from? It's coming from the people in the major cities that aren't willing to travel. And so now all these outskirts are saying, "Oh shit, I got 5,000 vaccines again this month or this week, and I got to get rid of them. And I've got 20 people in line."
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, but
And
that's
so
what
now
happened.
we're throwing away a whole bunch of vaccines because of it, and it just sucks. And we've got people that are chomping at the bit to get them here in a major metropolitan area, and they can't get it.
Yeah, poor
because
Travis.
We did it to ourselves.
But like, so the only reason I went to Dunn to begin with, because you can point fingers at me, I don't care. You're right. I went. And
Oh, I'm
found
not
the
pointing
vac-
fingers at you. I'm not.
Well, no,
I'm
you
just saying
can,
this is what happens.
because I did it. I found out there were vaccines available, and I want to go see my parents as soon as possible, and I wasn't
That's right.
wanting to wait till whenever they decided to open Group 4 to get a vaccine. And this area, for whatever reason, was really impossible to find an appointment, even with it all open to everybody. So I went, but I wonder, like, if they had incorporated the metric of, I mean, you write down what county you're from when you sign up at these open clinics. Like, you put down, I'm from Wake County. They should have been able to use that metric to go, man, like, nobody from this area is actually from this area.
From
like,
this
where
area.
what
That's
why
right.
not send those to an additional, like you went to the PNC Arena situation. You said it was really well done. It was distributed really well. You went through it easy peasy. I mean, Dunn was no different. It's just a community center. You showed up and you stood in line and you got vaccinated. But here, it seemed like we had far less of those, like, mass vaccination clinic situations. It was like you had to go to Chapel Hill, and that was like a hospital kind of scenario. You
was.
get an appointment, you do this. Dunn held a walk-in, and they said as long as you're in the groups. And then when they didn't get enough people, they said as long as you're a human over 18, you can come do it. So I don't know. I feel like there's more of a breakdown than just we sent 5,000 over here. Hey, welcome to the Legion of Dorks, Grain Barley Cast. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
But I think there's more to it than just rural area got a lot. People from outside of rural area got shots. I think we could have probably incorporated more metrics to decide where the value was actually going to be placed, or where we could have put everything.
Yeah.
But
think about it though.
yeah.
You really want. I mean, you want both rural and urban areas to be vaccinated at high rates, and
You do.
the faster you can get the rural areas done, the more you can start chopping wood on the urban areas, so to speak, and trying to make headway there. So
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
I
rural
mean,
areas adoption rates are so low.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to incorporate that look too. You know, you're like,
Yeah.
because I talked to my dad about it. Like, he's like, there's still people here who just won't go get it. You know, and he lives and works in a rural area. He's like, people just won't go get it, for various reasons. Some of them foolish. Some of them just like, I don't care enough. Which I'd
Yeah.
rather you say I don't care enough than say I'm afraid it's going to grow a horn in my head and my wiener's going to fall off. Like,
And
that's
I mean,
that's
in all
different.
fairness, I was reading a lot about folks that are really scared of the side effects. They're like, look, I would much rather get COVID because there's no sickness associated with that from a lot of people. I mean, some people die.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
right.
but yeah, that's what I've been hearing a lot.
Yeah.
So, and then Grain Barley Cast said that they're opening it up to everybody 18 and older in Florida. They're actually starting to talk about that here. I think in 2 weeks they're going to just open it up and say, "Hell, anybody could get it." But it sounds like Florida's already reached that tipping point.
Yeah.
Michigan did on Monday. Everybody 16 and over.
You just can't get an appointment.
I just can't
Travis.
find a damn appointment
Yeah. You want the shot.
anywhere.
You just
Like,
got to get one.
yeah. I mean, I'm happy to do it, but I also don't really want to drive 65 miles one way to get it, to then have to do that same thing in 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
that's a
the
good
problem I'm
segue
running into.
to your roundtable, actually, because this is
Yes,
what you
it is.
wanted to talk about. Let's go there.
Yeah, no, I just I want to get a vaccine, and part of my issue too is all the major pharmacies are doing it here. Rite Aid and CVS and Walgreens. My town, which I've talked about, is I'm a rural area. My town is not that big. The population center for my county, roughly 100,000, 120,000, maybe in the summer. It grows a little bit, uh, but we still have like between Rite Aid, CVS, and Walgreens, there are 8 or 9, maybe even 10 locations in the Traverse City mailing area, which is my town. One of each has appointments
Wow.
available, like at any time. So it's like, okay, what are we doing with 5 Walgreens in town and one is doing them? One is doing vaccines. So it's driving me crazy that I can't. And that's the thing that's killing me, is I just can't find an appointment anywhere, and I'm constantly checking all day at work. So I'm a little annoyed with that. But on the plus side, the other thing that's been going on for the last week is my continued work on getting my big ass in shape. So I'm I, I'm distracting myself from the lack of COVID vaccines by walking all the time and catching up on my podcasts and eating better. And I have now 10 days in a row of hitting my step goal for the day. I'm averaging
Nice.
about 13,000 steps a day.
Woo, buddy, you are
Um,
moving.
Yeah.
And last Saturday was great. I got up, I grabbed a breakfast burrito, I drove out and took Emerald with me to some new trails that I've never walked before. And it was like 4.5 miles, almost 5 miles of walking in the woods with him. That was great.
Oh,
I bet he loved it.
yeah.
Oh, he loved it, and then he slept the rest of the day. He was worn out. But it's been great. I'm loving my noontime walk. And the catching up on the podcast has been a lot of fun, because that's one of the things sitting at home is I fall behind on all that stuff because
Yeah.
I'm not commuting, I'm not driving. So yeah, that's been my last week, is just working on, and it's setting the good habits again. It's the habits of getting out and walking and being physically active. It's the habits of better food intake and eating breakfast every morning. I'm doing a fruit smoothie every morning, and I've done that for the last 2 weeks now. So it's creating those new habits again, and thankfully it's going well.
That's amazing.
Now if I could just get a damn COVID vaccine, then I could maybe travel again at some point.
Well, you're making the right kind of gains. I'm jealous of your morning walks. I wish I could get myself up and start my day in nature like that. Like that sounds absolutely amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely weekends are that. Weekdays it's usually like a noontime.
Yeah.
Noon 1 o'clock, somewhere like that, which it's going to start getting warm. I might have to shift them to the morning when it starts hitting. Thankfully though, because I can come home, I'm not as concerned with sweating a bit while I'm out walking, because I'm just going to sit at home.
Yeah.
So,
You're fine.
no big deal.
Yeah. You're good to go then. No, that's cool. Well, congratulations on the habit forming, and you'll have to keep us updated as we move forward
Oh, definitely.
through this show. And you can keep us updated on how you're doing. My dad lost like 50 pounds doing 10,000 steps a day. So and eating oatmeal in bed at night. Seems to also be oatmeal for dinner seemed to be the thing that really kicked it over. Well, that's cool. Well, it's good to I'm glad we could catch up. Those are some fun topics. But we do have some news. So let's see what we got here. Oh boy, 1 in 3 COVID survivors suffers neurological or mental disorders. That's rough. 1 in 3 COVID survivors have suffered a neurological or psychiatric disorder within 6 months of infection with the virus, said a study of more than 230,000 patient health records. The study published Tuesday analyzed data from the electronic health records of 236,379 COVID patients from the U.S.-based Trinetics Network, which based more than 81 million people. Thank you for the sub, Green Barley Cast. Appreciate that. Y'all are awesome. You Well, whoever, y'all are great. This group was compared with 105,579 patients diagnosed with influenza and 236,038 patients diagnosed with any respiratory tract infection, including influenza. Overall, the estimated incidence of being diagnosed with a neurological or mental health disorder following a COVID infection was 34%.
Jeez.
That's insane. For 13% of these people, it was their first recorded neurological or psychiatric diagnosis. So this is where the good stuff comes in and tells you actually what that means. The most common diagnosis after having the coronavirus were anxiety disorders, according to 17% of the patients, mood disorders, 14%, substance misuse disorders, 7%, and insomnia, 5%. The incidence of neurological outcomes was lower, including 0.6% for brain hemorrhage, 2.1% for ischemic stroke, and 0.7% for dementia. After taking into account underlying health characteristics, there was overall 44% greater risk of neurological and mental health diagnosis after COVID than after the flu, and a 16% greater risk of COVID than with respiratory tract infections. I didn't even know mental and psychiatric disorders and conditions were part of respiratory tract infections until I read this. But it seems like COVID is a beast. And I can't help but wonder, like, there are a lot of the isolation too has its own effect on anxiety and mood, substance abuse, insomnia, and I trust the data they've come out with. I just wonder if that kind of condition, if you got COVID, sure, but you were quarantined for 2 weeks at least by regulations, you're likely quarantined yourself more. Does it continue? Does it build on the problem that COVID potentially has already caused and then increase those numbers greater? Because if you have the flu, you had the flu. You move on. But with COVID, you had it. Oh my gosh, I had it. They made me stay inside for 2 weeks. I don't know where I am. I don't know what my life looks like anymore. I might have blood disease now. Like, I mean, does that add to it? And does that matter? You're the data guy, Jacob. Do they incorporate this stuff into it?
I mean, yeah, they try to normalize it the best they can. That's the reason why they compared it to the flu, to see what kind of outcome they have compared to the flu. And they looked at it for 6 months after the diagnosis. So it wasn't like they took just the initial 2 week span right after they were diagnosed, and the person that's in quarantine for 2 weeks all of a sudden has an anxiety attack, and that counts. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The pandemic, just the effects of the pandemic, are definitely going to exaggerate the situation. Um, deconvolving that is,
Yeah.
or deconvoluting that is going to be tough. I'm not sure it's necessarily easy to do now. I would say in about a year, 2 years, 5 years, when we start doing longitudinal studies on people that had COVID versus people that got vaccinated, you're going to start seeing some interesting information come out. I think what this article says to me is we don't know what the long-term impacts of having COVID are.
Yeah.
And everybody who said, "Oh yeah, it's no big deal. Go out, just get it, and then call it a day. Then you don't have to worry about being masked and not going out anymore because you've got antibodies because you got it already." I think that might have been a little bit short-sighted, because you have data that's starting to creep up about long-term ramifications with lung disorders, long-term ramification with blood disorders, now neurological disorders. I mean, there's a lot of things that are starting to pop up that you're like, huh, this isn't good, guys. This is really not long-term, not going to be good for us as a society. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens longitudinally with some of these
Yeah.
longer studies.
Well, let's see what happens outside.
Oh yeah, I guess I'm next. Outdoor transmission accounts for 0.1 of states' COVID-19 cases. This was in Ireland, by the way, so it's going to refer to places like the state and other things. So, just forewarning everybody. Just one confirmed case of COVID-19 in every 1,000 is traced back to outdoor transmission, studies revealed. Of the 236,164 cases of COVID-19 recorded in the state up to March 24th of this year, only 264 were the result of an outdoor transmission, which represents 0.1% of the total. There were 42 outbreaks associated with outdoor gatherings, with one community outbreak accounting for 7 cases. There were 21 outbreaks on construction sites with 124 cases. 21 outbreaks on construction sites with 124 cases. Okay,
An
and
outbreak
20
and then
outbreaks
spread to 124 people.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then 20 outbreaks associated with sporting events and fitness, in which there were 131 cases. The data was based on locations which are primarily associated with outdoor activities, i.e., outdoor sports or construction sites, or outbreaks specifically mentioned in the comments that outdoor location or activity was involved. The HSPC, which is short for, I think I deleted it out of here, but whatever. It's the Public Health Administration, so they cannot determine where the transmission occurred. The relatively low number of cases resulting from an outdoor transmission in the Republic is mirrored in international studies. A study of 1,245 cases in China found only 3 people infected outdoors, and they were in conversations without masks. According to a review by the University of California of 5 global studies of transmission, the chances of getting COVID-19 in an indoor setting is 19 times greater than outdoors. So, bottom line, outdoor settings equals good, indoor settings equals bad. How many times have we said that in the show?
Pretty much
Right.
since the beginning of the thing. Gather outdoors. If you intend to be close when you're gathered outdoors, keep your masks on. Which I think everyone I know's done a pretty good job of keeping either distance or keeping masks or both. Anytime we've met up with friends in backyards and stuff, we've been masked if we were on the porch, or not masked and standing on the sidewalk while our friends stood in the yard. Like
Yeah,
there's
10 feet away.
significant difference. That's good news. So that means your outdoor yoga class, if spread apart, can be an outdoor yoga class. And we had that one report of the CrossFit gym that kept their doors wide open, where the ventilation is really key. Like how do you circulate air in the place you're in? If you're going into like a weird old store in a strip mall with drop ceiling that hasn't had their HVAC done in Party City, for instance,
Yeah.
There you
go anywhere else. Don't go in Party City. Bad idea.
Well, didn't the CrossFit gym have like those big garage doors all the way aligning the building?
Yeah.
And they had fans up top that would suck air in and blow it straight out the garage doors.
Yeah.
And so the ventilation was ridiculous in that gym.
Yeah.
They had CO2 meters as well. So if it went up above a
Yeah.
certain point, they would set an alarm and tell everybody to get out until the CO2
right.
would come back down. I mean, these people had poured their life into this CrossFit gym, and they were not going to let it fall apart because of a pandemic. It was really impressive.
Yeah.
And it, your HVAC system matters. But, HVAC can't stop everything. Like all the new cases popping up as the variant becomes the big thing. Isn't that right, Travis?
Yeah, half of new cases are in 5 states, and the UK variant becomes the dominant strain in the US. So, nearly half of the new coronavirus infections nationwide are in just 5 states, a situation that is putting pressure on the federal government to consider changing how it distributes vaccines by sending more doses to the hotspots. New York, Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey together reported 44% of the nation's new COVID 19 infections, or nearly 197,500 new cases in the latest available 7-day period, according to state health agency data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. The heavy concentration of new cases in states that account for 22% of the U.S. population has prompted some experts and elected officials to call for President Joe Biden's administration to ship additional vaccine doses to those places. So far, the White House has shown no signs of shifting from its policy of dividing vaccine doses among states based on the population. The 7-day average for new daily cases in the U.S. increased over the past 2 weeks from 53,651 on March 23rd to 64,791 on Tuesday, according to Johns Hopkins University, while the average number of deaths, a lagging indicator, declined from 821 to 744. So 22% of the population lives in those 5 states, and they are accounting for 44%, almost half of the new cases.
A lot.
That's nuts.
I mean, we got a couple things at play here. I think New Jersey and New York, depending on the areas we're looking at, could be a lot of the same population density When you're looking at a lot of people commute from New Jersey to New York City to work, to shop, to party, whatever. I can't help but wonder if that's at play. I would love to see the heat map of that, I guess. Like,
I would
where
too.
are we? Where are we actually? I could have looked that up, but I didn't. Michigan, I don't have any explanation for. Pennsylvania, I don't have any explanation for. Florida, spring break just happened. Florida has generally been the unruly child of
Yes.
COVID-19, which has been really rough for everybody that I know that lives in Florida. That's like, why can't we pull this together? But yeah, I'm not exactly surprised. I'm
not
surprised that
either,
it's
and-
half. I'm not surprised it's a spike. I'm surprised that it's half.
Yeah. And I think like Michigan and Pennsylvania, it's a thing of Michigan has basically Detroit and then the rest of Michigan.
Sure.
So it's either tightly packed in the Detroit metro area or it's the rest of Michigan, which is rural and a lot of people not getting vaccines anyway. Which is another reason why I can't figure out how I can't find a damned appointment. But I'm not bitter and I'm not going to dwell on it. Okay.
Sure.
Oh,
No,
okay.
you're not going to
Yeah,
dwell on it.
Definitely.
No, not at all. I'm not going to bring it up with every news story, but yeah, I would say that the fact that it's 44% of the new cases is the part that I wouldn't have predicted. Like I would have said I knew it was bad. I did not know it was this bad. Like
Yeah.
that's a large portion.
Yeah, it's a huge amount. I mean, it makes me feel good living in North Carolina, I guess.
Yeah.
But somehow that we're not as bad as other places where people are.
And
But
California was one of the leading ones that was really had a lot of cases there, and they're actually talking about opening up, full opening up soon.
Yeah.
So their numbers are coming down significantly.
yeah, and I hope that trend continues for them. I just want to see us get out of this thing as quickly as
yeah.
possible, and I'd love to get this isolated. I guess the question is now, if we want to discuss it a little, is that rollout, like, does it make sense to start sending vaccines to these hotspots where COVID is on the rise, or could we end up like just hot potatoing hotspots? Like, oh, we got vaccines going here. Oh crap! Now this place is on fire. Do we end up with that scenario? I wonder about that for two things: for
Whack-a-mole.
the population density issue that we've talked about before on the show, and the mobility issue, talking about teens and college age kids who are still doing stupid things despite knowing better at this point, or should know better at this point. Like, what is our vaccine strategy? Is it working? Do we need to pivot and stop the age group only kind of scenario?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've brought up spring break twice now, and once in the context of Miami and the other in Florida, and the other just now. And Miami actually had protesters standing outside of town hall protesting the spring breakers, saying we need to stop bringing in spring breakers right now and stop allowing them to be here because this is causing a problem for all of us. And which I find is interesting that the residents of Miami were like, hey, whoa, we don't want the spring breakers at this point.
That's a lot of cash money for them to go out
It
and say,
is.
like, I don't want this
Yeah.
money, which is what they're saying. Like, I can
Yep.
make it a year. Let's get rid of everybody. That's a big deal. It's a big
But
deal.
yeah, I mean, the bottom line there is the spring breakers will go back to wherever they're coming from. It doesn't matter if they're in rural Idaho or if they're in New York City. I mean, it's still to me, it's the what was the heat map that we saw before? It was early on in the process where the first set of spring breakers. Geez, this is the second spring break.
This is
that
the
we've
second
been
spring
living
break
through
since
this.
pandemic. Yeah, we track
Where
cell phone
they
data.
actually, they track cell phone data. That's right.
Oh
and,
yeah.
and watching that video was just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Where it pretty much touched every quarter of the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, and it did this year too, I'm sure. I mean, I saw
Yeah.
pictures out of spring break that made me want to cry. It's like, why are y'all standing on top of cars? Like, what are we doing? This is a great party, you know. It makes me worry about things. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think about things like Dragon Con, those events we look forward to, wondering if they're even gonna, if it's even a possibility. You know, we're talking Labor Day weekend for that one in particular, and I'm hoping it's a thing. but you're still talking about up to 80,000 people in these hotels and trying to keep people in masks. Doesn't seem reasonable.
Do you think we're going to hit the vaccination rate that we need to hit to get herd immunity? Do you think we're going to hit that
at all?
75 to 80% of vaccinated population?
Not vaccinated. Maybe we'll hit it in case count plus vaccination. But
You think so?
I think we will. I don't know when, but I think we will. I think that I'd rather see it in the vaccination on the high end of that percentage. But I think there are people that will have had it that aren't in a rush because they've had it. They feel like they don't need the vaccine and all the side effects because they've got natural God-given immunity. Let my system do as it does. And I think it's possible to get there. I just hope we get there before the variants, new and more difficult to fight variants happen. You know, that's my thought. But anyway,
Ashley wants me to rip Walgreens a new one.
Oh, because she couldn't get an appointment because of the Pfizer thing? You can rip them a new one if you want. You can do that in a deep dive.
Yeah, I'll do that in a deep dive.
Deep down
right,
into Walgreens. Hey, so we got this going on. Speaking of data and watching things happen, real world data shows the vaccines are kicking butt, including against the scary variant. I love the opinion in that headline. Like, let me make sure I intimidate you. Oh, scary variant. It's got fangs and wolf ears. In a small trial, the Pfizer BioNTech, which I learned is how you pronounce their name, BioNTech vaccine fully protected people from symptomatic COVID-19 caused by the worrisome B.1.351 coronavirus variant wildly circulating in South Africa. Good news, because the South Africa one is one of the bigger ones.
GNE.
Yeah. Though researchers will need more data to confirm the results, it is just the latest bit of positive news to come out this week about how the vaccines are performing in real-world conditions. On Monday, the CDC released real-world data showing that Pfizer's BioNTech mRNA vaccine and Moderna's mRNA vaccine were, collectively, 90% effective at preventing infections in fully vaccinated healthcare frontline and essential workers. On Wednesday, Pfizer and BioNTech announced that their vaccine is highly effective in adolescents 12 to 15 years old, not just the adult part of the population. And on Thursday, the companies announced the B.1.351 news as well as new data on durability. The latest monitoring data on people vaccinated in phase 3 trials suggests the vaccine is still 91% effective at preventing symptomatic disease up to 6 months after the second dose. That's longer than previously established, but researchers will still need more data to assess of efficacy beyond 6 months. This is the Twinkie problem. We can only tell you how good a Twinkie is based on how long we've had to test that Twinkie. If the Twinkie has only been around 6 months and it still looks good, all we can tell you is at 6 months the Twinkie still looks good. We have to wait until they've been out there for at least that amount of time to actually tell you with any certainty that the Twinkie is good at a year.
I love that you just made rolling stability analogous to how long you can keep a Twinkie. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's gonna Armageddon will destroy the Twinkies. In this world.
Sure. I mean, you got to simplify it for the masses, Jacob. People understand the Twinkie meter.
The Twinkie meter.
Yeah, can that be a show title? That's a good one.
The Twinkie meter.
The bottom line message is that vaccines work very well in the real-world setting, says Anthony Fauci. They work against variants, although we need further data to confirm that. They're durable for at least 6 months, and they work in adolescents. Very, very good reason for everyone to get vaccinated as soon as it becomes available to you. Dr. Fauci out there preaching the good word of vaccines, trying to make you get biochips so you can connect to the 5G network.
And there are still some people that are like proposing bills in Congress to fire Fauci.
Can they just go home? Like, can you just sit down and relax for a minute and just let the adults drive the car? I don't care what side of the aisle you on. A proposal to fire Dr. Fauci after his 30 years of service to multiple administrations is foolish, and you should just stop.
Yeah.
If there's any one man loyal to the science, it's that guy. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of stopping, AstraZeneca is going to have to stop because they're getting kicked out of U.S. factory over a mix-up that ruined 15 million vaccine doses. AstraZeneca has been kicked out of a production plant in Baltimore after a mix-up is thought to have contaminated 15 million doses of a coronavirus vaccine produced by J&J. The AstraZeneca jab has not yet obtained approval in the U.S., but the production of the vaccine has started in anticipation of the green light. It was being produced by a subcontractor at the plant operated by Emergent Biosolutions in Baltimore. The plant was also manufacturing J&J's vaccines, and workers at the factory mistakenly mixed up the ingredients. As a result, 15 million doses of the vaccine produced by J&J, which has been given FDA approval, had to be destroyed. J&J will now assume full responsibility for the production of its vaccine at that plant. The pharmaceutical giant, which has promised to deliver 100 million doses of its single-shot vaccine to the U.S. by the end of May, said it will deploy additional staff at the Baltimore plant. AstraZeneca's vaccine will be produced elsewhere in the United States, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said. The location has not been disclosed. So they're pretty much saying, bye, AstraZeneca. You hadn't been approved. Get out.
We can't get AstraZeneca some good news. Like
Yeah, we really
No.
can.
like this is just another setback for them. Like I think we determined last week that all the rigmarole around their vaccine anyway was kind of up in the air and not really relevant. But it didn't help that there's already countries going, never mind. We're not going to let that one in. Like, and now
Right.
they jack up Johnson & Johnson's vaccine process. Like, someone is getting fired at AstraZeneca. I know they're going to get a $30 million bonus or whatever for producing a vaccine, but they need to be the whole situation needs to be rethought because this is not good optics for them. You know what's also not good optics, Travis?
What's also not good optics?
Jim is offering free membership to those who don't get a COVID-19 vaccine. After Krispy Kreme announced free donuts for those who get a COVID-19 vaccine, a gym owner in New Jersey is rewarding those who don't get vaccinated. Ian Smith, who says he is a co-worker at the Attilis Gym located in Belmar, posted on social media that he plans to give free memberships to customers who don't get a COVID-19 vaccine. In light of at Krispy Kreme giving free donuts for receiving the COVID shot, here at the Attilis Gym, we are giving out free memberships to all who don't get vaccinated. We believe in health the real way. Exercise, good diet, plenty of vitamin D, zinc, and an environment to distress. I think he wanted to say de-stress, but that's not a word. According to CBS Philadelphia, the gym opened in May 2020 and started a legal battle over whether the state's order for non-essential businesses to close was constitutional. The gym repeatedly defied the shutdown order and was fined more than $130,000 last year. So, look, meatheads at the gym already get a bad rap. These people aren't helping that at all. Like, not even a tiny bit.
They opened in May of 2020, and they pretty much opened just to defy the orders in New Jersey. And
you know what this reads like to me
is this just a publicity thing?
Rich kid. It's just a rich kid who's got probably never had to work a day in his life and decided he's just going to do this to thumb his nose at the man.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, it seems like it's a contrarian thing. It's there primarily just to be anti whatever the movement is. It's like Hollow Earth or Flat Earth but there's nonsense to it. They know that they're being ridiculous, but it's cool to buck the system. You know, it's cool to just be a butthole. These people need to read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
They do. 1930s.
1938.
They knew
man.
something.
Yeah, still resonates.
It's contrarianism for the sake of it is just exhausting.
Yeah,
I just have no time for that shit because it's pointless, and it just wears me out. So when I read stuff like this, I just get worn out by it because you're right. It's exactly that. It's just somebody who's like, "Oh, you say that non-essential business is fine. I'm going to open up my own business and I'm going to keep it open." And clearly he doesn't care about the actual business and making money at it because he's opened the gym and then spent another $130,000 in fines, not to mention how much he spent in legal whatever behind the scenes to fight the order. And now, you know, we're giving him free publicity for being a dingus and telling people not to get a shot and then come work out at his gym for free. When you put this story in our chat, my initial response was, well, it makes it easier to know where not to work out. So I applaud them for that, I suppose. But
Yeah. This is just one of those stories, man. I have removed more than one contrarian, poisonous person from my life before, simply because no statement I made was met with anything other than an argument, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is a pointless. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead, delete this number from my phone, and move on with my life, because this is just exhausting knowing you. And this Jim is not the personification, the opposite of a personification. It's like
Yeah.
it is the a person turned into a building. It's like,
Mhm.
go away. Yeah, it's. I don't know why we give these people the time of day, but we do. And there'll be people that go. There'll be people that are like, yeah,
Well,
America. I don't
I
need
mean,
no
that'll be
vaccine.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She'll be there working out, doing her CrossFit, ripping her shoulders
But
out.
how do they validate this? Like, what? How do you prove a negative? If I go in there and I say, I can get a vaccine. Give me free gym membership, and they go, well, don't show us your vaccine card. Okay,
Exactly.
I got a no vaccine card right here. I printed it out at home. Let's go. Like,
Yeah.
what do they? How do they prove it? How do they validate any of this? They don't have a right to your medical record because
Nope.
HIPAA. The card that you're carrying, you don't have to give them. I just don't know. He's
There
looking
is
for
no
the
way.
hole
It's
in my
literally
arm.
yeah, no, it's literally just a publicity thing to drum up people to show up at his gym.
These are the worst
And
kind of people.
what they'll do is they'll figure out some way to have it in the contract for new gym memberships that the free membership for not having a vaccine only lasts a certain amount of time, and then you have to go pay your normal rate.
That's probably true.
And
Yeah, because they don't
they'll bury
say
that in the
here.
legalese.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't give you like it doesn't say you get a free gym membership for a year or whatever. It's probably a free 7-day trial that they already offer.
Yeah. Yep.
You know.
It's probably something like that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway, they're a bunch of meatheads, and I'm sorry that
Mhm.
the planet has to deal with them. But let's get on to the deep dive topic, which I think is actually worth a chat, and I'm glad Ashley brought it up. And that's who decides when and how you get your vaccines, particularly the 2-dose vaccines, and whether they should have any authority to change the overall dosing structure. Jacob, I'm gonna let you walk us through it since you're close to the initial complaint.
Yes,
You
I am
can
closest to the initial complaint.
Let's
So
go.
Ashley got her first shot about 3 weeks ago, and I made sure I was like, "Look, make sure you schedule it for 3 weeks out." And when she came back, she said, "Oh, well, my vaccine shot is scheduled for April 20th or whatever." And I'm like, "Hold on, wait, that's not right. That's 4 weeks. It should be 3 weeks." Um, all of a sudden now Walgreens is in the news for spacing out the shots incorrectly. Rather than 3 weeks, which is what Pfizer recommends. They're doing it for every 4 weeks, and their excuse was that Walgreens, however, separated them by 4 weeks because it made it faster and simpler for the company to schedule appointments. There's no evidence that separating the doses by an extra week decreases the vaccine effectiveness, is what they're arguing. The CDC recommends a 3-week gap. The agency is says it's acceptable to separate the doses by up to 6 weeks if absolutely necessary. Um, Pfizer did studies at 3 weeks out. They presented data at 3 weeks out. We should stick to that 3 weeks because we don't necessarily know what it's like after 6 weeks or even more. And for Walgreens to make a unilateral decision to just do it at 4 weeks is it sucks butts. And I feel like everybody should say, Walgreens, bad kitty. You've done a bad and you need to go and fix it. And so Ashley actually made a phone call today and tried to fix it. She was like, "Oh, wait, pharmacy, look, you only scheduled me for 4 weeks out. You should have scheduled me for 3 weeks." And the guy was like, I can't do anything from my end. You're going to have to call when you hit 3 weeks and see if you can't find an open appointment and come on in. If you can, great. Good luck to you. If you can't, you've got an appointment 4 weeks. Just show up in 4 weeks. So I feel like Walgreens deserves a kick in the nuts right now, not only for what they did, but also the way they're handling it.
Yeah, and to what you can do. This is just for your situation. If you do want to get it at the right time, you need to get it. Dunn is doing clinics. And you should be able to walk in and get your second vaccine with them at the right date.
You've been holding on to that one, had you?
Just thought about it. Like, oh man, they didn't really check anything of us except our vaccine card, which I'm pretty sure is the same for everybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in chat they mentioned about Moderna, and yeah, it's supposed to be 4 weeks for Moderna, and that's absolutely right, 100%. And I wonder if they were just like, well, 3 weeks for this vaccine, 4 weeks for this vaccine. If we have too many of this, blah 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 blah, let's just schedule them all for 4 weeks and just call it a day, because it's the least common denominator. 4 weeks, everybody will be safe, and I don't think that they really took into account the reality of the situation, which is what the data is based
Also,
on for the Pfizer one.
Is it me or does that seem exceedingly lazy? Because you're literally, it's one or the other,
Yeah.
and you know which one you're putting into a person, and you're scheduling them right then. It's like, oh, it's Pfizer. All right, we'll schedule you for 3 weeks. Oh, this one's Moderna. Well, that's 4 weeks, so we'll schedule you out for 4 weeks. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
We could automate that in a spreadsheet.
Well, they could, but Walgreens is actually doing something a little bit different. They're not scheduling it at the time of dose. When you schedule your first vaccine, you also schedule your second vaccine when you schedule your first one. So it's not you get jabbed with whichever vaccine you're going to get jabbed with and then schedule your second one based on the number of weeks. You already have your appointment. You have both of them set up when you get your first vaccine appointment, which is what they're. No, you're not.
So you're just making 2 appointments and then showing up, and they say, all right, flip a coin, you get Moderna. And
I think it's based on what they have, if they have Moderna or if they have Pfizer.
That makes sense. Yeah, lowest common denominator is 4 weeks. Just go. We'll just do 4 weeks and flip a coin, and we'll always have our system say four. Yeah, this is a little bit of extra work on the software side of things to go, okay, type vaccine equals Moderna or equals Pfizer. This is how long, if else, if then do this. You know, this is simple logic. But it's way easier to just go, if vaccine, 4 weeks, time delta, 4 weeks plus whatever.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, this is stupid. This is bad. It's bad form. Like, the CDC, like you said a second ago when you were reading this thing, the CDC says you can separate those doses up to 6 weeks. We've had data out of the UK saying that they were separating them at a time up to 12 for healthy people, which they think was going to work. But then we found that it was really detrimental for cancer patients. They were finding that the split, doing it that big of a delay in a cancer patient for whatever reason, caused a much lower efficacy or antibody presence among that population. So we really don't know, like, how everyone is going to react. What we do know is what we studied, and what we studied was 3 weeks. So I think yeah, this is it's a bad move. It's a bad move on Walgreens, and it's sad that Walgreens is one of the chief places people are going to go because there's one on every street corner in most cities in America. Do we know anything about CVS's scheduling? Do they do things like this? If we don't, that's fine.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's
From what I understood, the way CVS did it was, because I almost scheduled for CVS, but it wasn't quite open for me at the time to go. But they were scheduling your second dose when you went in for your first. So you go in, get it, and then schedule your second one, is what I remember.
That makes sense. You know, that seems like
CVS did it right, but they have many, many, many other shortcomings as a company. And if I could kick CVS in the nuts for some of the decisions they made, I would prefer to do that as well. So both of them suck.
Jacob, did you know that the insurance I get my prescriptions for is owned by a pharmacy? Because I do, and it irritates me every time I think about it. CVS should never been allowed to buy. Yeah, they should never been allowed to buy an insurance company and then tell me that going to a CVS is the only way to get my 90-day supply. That's how that got through. I don't know. Buy all the phone companies you want, AT&T. Why did you let CVS buy It's just stupid.
And then
It's
they
stupid.
they wrapped in your deductible into prescriptions, which made it even stupider. So now
Yes.
people have to pay out of pocket for prescriptions until they meet their deductible. And it's our healthcare system is just in massive need of
Bonkers.
some major changes.
Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. You don't even have to be like a pro single payer to believe that it's bonkers. Like you could be you could be in whatever camp you want to be, and you could look at it and go, something needs to change. Like this is dumb. But here we are. We're not gonna solve that on Staring at Goats.
No, we're going to avoid that
Yeah,
topic. We're just going to say major changes are needed regardless of whether or not you believe that it needs to be private or whether you need to be public. It doesn't matter. Major changes are needed.
We just need to
The
fix
whole system is broken.
that podcast is called Just Shoot the Goat. Put it down.
The goat is shot. You're staring. You have nothing to stare at.
You nothing to stare at. Your goat is
staring
gone
at the
now.
void.
this show is lighthearted enough that we're just still sitting there looking at him. We haven't taken any action yet. No, this was a good show, you guys. I had a lot of fun chatting about all of these topics. I think despite me thinking we'd eventually run out of content, we seem to have become really good at pruning the stuff that's actually interesting to chat on. Even though this pandemic has stretched longer than any one of us, including the chat room, ever wanted it to. But I think for those of you out there that are done with seeing another episode of Staring Goats show up in your feed because the pandemic's still here, you're not alone. I mean, I know some of us feel that way. I certainly feel that way plenty.
Yeah.
But we're all suffering in our different ways, and whatever kind of help you need to get, go get it the best you can in these trying times, because it's not easy.
Yeah, and the kind of help that I need is let me know what kind of podcast we should do next, because I am so ready to move away from COVID ASAP. So I want to have something in the chute ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Staring at Goats is done, I'm so excited about never talking about COVID again.
I don't want it to dominate conversation anymore. I'm so tired of talking to everyone and going, "Did you get vaccinated? How's your quarantine going? What do you?" It's so frustrating that I'm just I can't handle it. I just want to talk about the weather. I would try anything. You know how long it's been since I've had a nice conversation about religion with anyone? Like, I know it sounds ridiculous. Like you don't talk about that with people, but I used to have nice, cordial discussions about religion with people. I miss those, which is saying something. Like
Yes.
like it's saying something. I want to not talk about COVID anymore. I want to get back to the other awkward things that we could discuss. I miss it. But anyway, thank you guys for being with us, for hanging out tonight. This has been a lot of fun. Voicemail. We want to get to that. You got a voicemail from Rishi B.
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah. Here's that voicemail right now.
Hello, the host of Staring at Goats. This is Rishi B. I was encouraged to leave a voicemail regarding COVID. Recently, the CDC updated their guidelines that vaccinated people can participate in a number of different activities, essentially living almost a near normal lifestyle, uninhibited by social distancing, etc. And the crux of the argument there is using vaccination as an incentive, or using these loosened guidelines as an incentive to get people to vaccinate. And I actually agree with this. I think that this is kind of a way to encourage people to get vaccinated while still making sure that everyone stays safe, making sure that if they're near unvaccinated people, that they're not, completely going hog wild. I think that that's okay. I think any further direct carrots probably crosses some lines, but I think telling people that you're vaccinated, and we now have more data in about the sort of effects that happen to vaccinated people when they go out into the world. As long as everyone's maintaining distancing, I think that that's okay. And so that's my opinion. I'm just Rishi B, a healthcare guy who has a healthcare podcast, and that should make me the grand poobah of healthcare in America. But that's up to you. I'll leave it to the people who stare at goats. All right, thanks. All doing well. Bye.
So
That was
yeah,
glorious.
so that was great. So yeah, he kind of echoes what we were saying, which is, the loosening of the guidelines for those who get the vaccination is a good using that as the carrot to get people to get the vaccines is a good idea, and I agree with him.
Yeah.
So
I think it's great. I think it works on people who were already careful to begin with. I think that's a big contender for that, is like you feel like you can go out now versus we've seen and talked to or been around people talking to others who've just been like, F it, I do what I want. So that you're not really helping those people get vaccinated.
no,
But you're more making a solid argument to people who are skeptical and quarantining, which I think is
Mhm.
probably a smaller fraction. Like if you're quarantining, you're probably not as skeptical about the vaccine than those who are open. Maybe I'm wrong on that, and I'd be interested to get any feedback from audience members who know people or whatever that are quarantining and are still like vaccines.
yeah,
Because that seems like that would be a small portion of that audience to me.
I would think so.
Yeah, but
I think
But
you're right.
if you want to be like Rishi and send us a voicemail, because we like to get them, you can
Please
call
do.
us. It's 231-486-5401.
That's
Give us
right.
a call, leave us a message. We want to hear from you.
Yep. So thank you, Rishi, for calling in. Rishi does, what's his podcast?
Healthy Schmelthy.
Healthy Schmelthy. There you go. Rishi's awesome. So subscribe to that. Not everyone gets a plug because I don't know all of you, but I at least know of Rishi. So he's got that. But yeah, that's 231-486-5401. If you enjoyed the show, give us a review or tell your friends about it. Believe it or not, when you look at the title of the show as you're looking for new podcasts to listen to, Staring at Goats does not exactly scream COVID quarantine discussion podcast. So the more people we have in the reviews and telling people, the better. The more likely it is that this show gets more traction, because we kind of need that based on how horribly we titled this thing. But we also didn't expect it to be a year-long show, so, take that as you will. You can follow us on Twitter, staring_goats, which is a place where you can just shoot us questions or thoughts in 240 characters or less. If you want to support us monetarily, you can do that at twodorks.net/support, which will take you to our Patreon page where you can join the wonderful patrons who support our network and the stuff we do. DH Dunn, Hammer Dwarf, Jesse, Og, Adam and Christine of Geekheim, Oddly Normal One, and our parents. That list grows, and it's fun to say their names at the end of every show. You want to say your name? Put it on the Patreon. Even $1 is really helpful, to be quite honest. It means a lot to us. If you want to tip us once and just like buy us a coffee or whatever, twodorks.net/tip is the place to do that. But we have had a great time talking to you guys. It's been Steven, Jacob, and TV's Travis. And we'll see you all next time while we stare at goats. Bye. Mine was more of a Peter Griffin laugh than it was